It's the 12th of July, 2016. Oh, Bender and I were talking one day at lunch that he commented to me as we were walking up to have some lunch. He said, we got the easiest job in the world. And I said, well, I know we got the best job in the world, but what exactly do you mean by the easiest? And he goes, because we're working with a model of physics perfection that nobody can do. I mean, there's always something you can do to improve a swing. So we always have something productive we can do. And I hadn't thought about it like that, but that's really true. And the one thing you can do from a kinesthetic standpoint is a little bit more bend from the hips. So the bend, a couple of checkpoints. One is this belt line should point about a foot past the ball, and that's just another few degrees. And the other one is that think in terms of 45 degrees from the base of the spine to the top of the spine, and that's right around 50. So 40 is the ideal. And so it's not a lot, but if we picture 45, we can all picture 45 without being engineers. So 45 is pretty easy to picture in your mind. So when you're looking in the mirror, you can look at the belt line and you can look at that angle there. Now what's interesting is usually you change that angle to get closer to the 40, but 40 allows everything to work together. Let me show you something. Let me do this first. I'll come back to that. Anyway, this is so that's the setup, same as in both of them. I forget which is which, but this one I think was the one was too quick. Yeah, just a little bit rushed on that one, right? And then this one was smoother and you hit this one better. So it's just a fraction of difference in the time. And if we were to break that down, I'm always curious to do this just to see. I mean, we know it's kind of academic because we know that being rushed, it's easy for some little something to get out of position. The hardest thing is that the arms and the body need to work together for good timing. So when we get a little rushed, it's hard to coordinate that. But the swing looks great. I mean, you got the club face perfect to the top. It's a little bit closed going back, but I love the backswing. And that didn't change even though you rushed it. Sometimes when you rush it on the backswing, you can not finish your turn, but that can happen if you take it back as well. So this is the good one, and there's not much difference between the two. As you start down, there's time to allow that to drop into the slot. My eyes aren't good enough, by the way, to be able to see this stuff without looking at it slowly. And that rushed a little bit. Doesn't look a whole lot different, but it doesn't quite get down quite as low. But it's just a just the tiniest little. I mean, this could be the same dang swing. It's ridiculous. There's just not much difference. But if we had more expensive camera equipment and more expensive graphics, then we could probably go, there it is. There's a 2/100ths of a percent error there, but it's really difficult to tell the difference in these. So the time difference is minuscule as well. I mean, that's crazy. Did I not do that right? That looked like the same swing, didn't it?
It looked like the same swing.
Yeah, let me see. That can't be that closely choreographed. Let me do that again. It looked too close. Again, this would be the good one, and this is the not so good one. So this is the last one we put in here, which is the first one, not so good. Yeah, I did that right on the full speed, but not on the slow speed. Let's try that again. Don't even have the same graphics, so that's what we did wrong. Okay, so this is the good one. They're not going to be a whole lot different, but there's no way the camera is going to be that close on two different swings. There's not that many frames.
Well, those look identical, almost identical.
Yeah, they're different, but there's not much. I'm still surprised they're that closely together. That's crazy. Well, there's the reason why we want to bend over a little bit more, because regardless of when we look at these, the idea is that when you're coming through, we got to get a little bit more bend so that the body can stay in posture. But again, that's let's go back to the good one here. Let's get the good one on the left. I know we put the last one in first. I'm easily confused. Okay, so a little bit more bend is going to allow you to stay in the posture. Watch as you go back, and this is what I was saying, that even somebody as great as Ben Hogan didn't have the access to the knowledge that we have now about kinesthetics and all that stuff. And look at that setup. This is where a lot of people still teach that it doesn't matter how you set up because Hogan was so good. But watch him coming down to 40 degrees. Because that's the ideal angle that lets the arms and the body work together. Now he's got the arm swinging at 90 degrees to the axis, and that's, from a physics standpoint, that's the most efficient position to be in. An object goes faster and more efficiently at 90 degrees to the axis, and there he's able to stay right in that posture all the way through. So if you move into your posture and you're as good as Hogan, there's the problem area, then you're able to start wherever you want, but most of us aren't quite that good. But notice how much you moved down as you swung back. You kind of instinctively went into even lower than 40. There's the problem. If you're not where you need to be, you tend to overdo it sometimes. Good sense, though, of moving into the right spot. Plane just looks beautiful. Now, the one thing you'll notice, and we'll see it from the front, you see that left arm?
Oh, it's killing me, the chicken wing.
Yeah, that is going to be, that's going to create an epicondyle problem if you hit a million golf balls. So, fortunately, your life is too busy to be able to do that. But there, the chicken wing is largely starts at the setup. And I know we talked about letting that rotate, but we got to start right from the setup if we get to the front view and see that. Well, this was the good one. Let's see if that tempo's there. Yeah, that's smooth. Then we talked about the drill, and then there's the other one. So we're going to skip the other one. We don't need to see all that stuff. But now, when you look at this, you see that left arm is kind of curled out to begin with. So we need to make a conscious effort to kind of turn that in. Even though the grip is here, that doesn't change where this can be. This can be here, and then the grip can be wherever it needs to be. So when you've got this grip over here, you're letting the arm dictate the grip dictate the arm rather than let the grip be the grip and the arm be the arm. So we need to get that arm in that position and then just put the grip on there where we need it. So your grip is fine, your grip's beautiful, setup's beautiful, but I'd like to see that left arm just a little bit more rotated in, and I'd also like to see it a little bit more on top of your chest. When you look at anybody else here, let's see if we got a decent picture. Adam Scott's a decent picture, but see that left arm's more on top of the chest, and you can see the inside of the elbow. See if I get a clearer picture. So I use Ernie so much because it's such a, well, left arm is just right on top of the chest, and you can see a little bit of the inside of the elbow. So he's definitely got that parked right on top of his left pec, and you're a little bit on the side of the pec. But it's not really affecting your backswing, but it'll be a good thing to do. So that little bit of rotation there, and then watch as you go back. That's really, really close. Now, if that left arm was more on top, you have a little bit more space here because you got plenty of width with the right arm. Watch as he goes back, and you'll see he appears to be a little bit wider, but mostly because the left arm's on top of the chest and it gives it more room. You're a little stuck on your pec there as you go back. So then the wrists are cocking nicely. I'd like to see that right arm pointing down a little bit. I know we've talked about that before. That's just one of those things that let that right arm point to the ground a little bit more. And then if that points to the ground, and the wrist should be cocked at 90 degrees. When the left arm is parallel, we pretty much need to have that at 90. So you're a little late on the wrist cock. Should be more natural than forced. See, he's not thinking about cocking it. It's just the centrifugal force and the proper grip allows that to just fold up. And he takes it forever with this swing. As you know, he doesn't do this anymore. He's got a much better swing, but he hadn't won anything, so they give me some nice slow motion pictures. And we end up losing a little bit of the wrist cock. I didn't see any of them, but I heard a couple of them that were fat. That could be a fat shot very easily because you see the difference where he is and where you are. And a lot of that has to do with the late wrist cock. In other words, when you're going back, if you allow your wrist to cock at the proper time, then they can be maintained. So that would be the proper time. When you see the left arm parallel, you want to see that club vertical. And again, the right arm just a little bit more pointed down. See his right elbow is kind of disappearing at that point. And once you've cocked the wrist at that point, you really don't want to uncock them. Centrifugal force is going to uncock it for you. Kind of like the right arm. You've heard me say the right arm doesn't bend. Well, we know it does, but you want to feel like it's just allowed to bend, but you don't bend it. And you don't uncock your wrist either, any more than you do using a hammer. You don't consciously uncock your wrist, it just centrifugal force does that. So that's a good checkpoint for you to come down to. So that's the biggest missing link in this swing. Wrist cock is just kind of an argument for a better wrist action, but not really critical. A lot of guys have late wrist action. Puts a little more strain on your timing. But here's the biggest mistake in the swing. When you get down to here, you should have your hands still cocked at that point. The right arm is still cocked. You've pretty much released the whole thing. Especially by the time you get to that spot, there's really nothing left.
Okay, and you're saying that if I cock it at the right
cock it
time,
at the right time,
back, it will stay that way until...
It won't necessarily, but it has a better chance. In other words, the proper wrist cock at the proper time allows you to uncock it at a more opportune time. Doesn't mean you will. You may be in the habit of doing what you're in the habit of doing. But for sure, that backswing, we're much better off. Tiger made that change very late in his career, and he had a very late wrist cock, and it created a lot of timing issues. So it's for a lot of reasons we want to cock the wrist when our left arm is parallel. It's much better to do it there. But then if we get down to here, if we uncock it too early, then that's going to put pressure on this left arm to chicken wing, as opposed to, you can see that's the exact same hand position over the right thigh as this one. And we know you came from the inside, so that if you're coming from the outside, that can be a real motive for that left arm to chicken wing. You're coming from the inside beautifully. You're just simply releasing the wrist cock too soon, and then the left arm doesn't rotate properly because it wasn't rotated properly to begin with. So that's how good your swing is, because anybody that's got that much of an angle coming through, I mean, you hit an awful lot of good shots. You know, this is, as long as your rhythm is good, you hit some great shots. And I've heard teachers that I've worked with, and they've showed me pictures of their students, and they say, well, some people just aren't going to get better than that. That's just their swing. Well, I obviously don't agree with that. That's ridiculous. So that can be changed. We just got to change it. So this is a checkpoint for you. We need to work on that downswing position. So once your hands get to the thigh, the right wrist is still cocked. And then that's going to allow us to get into the ball with the hands leaning forward. Second crucial thing for consistency is that forward leaning shaft, which is nothing more than still retaining a little bit of wrist cock. Once you lose the wrist cock, obviously the club's got to pass your hands, and the timing gets so hypercritical. And you almost have to chicken wing the proper amount in order to avoid hitting it fat. And one more thing with the swing machine here, we talked about maintaining even speeds. There was a book out years ago called Tempo. I think it was called Tempo. Anyway, the idea was that Tour Tempo, that was the name. And they had these different tour tempos, and some people were a little faster than others, some people were a little slower, but they all had the same math in that they had 2 parts to the backswing and 1 part to the through swing. And so something like that. I forget the gist of it. I remember reading that book and talking to that with Bender, and Bender says, so everybody on tour has the tour tempo, and he goes, wouldn't it make more sense to develop a tour swing and then have tour tempo rather than try to get tour tempo without the tour swing? And I couldn't argue with that logic. It was pretty simple. But I like this a lot. You put the club out in front and you just create a swinging motion, and once that's established, I mean, that's smooth. That just really looks good. So let's get these 2 remaining things in place here. Let's see if we can get those.